In this installment of IT security, we're going to talk about IT security policy, acceptable use policies, awareness training. We'll also talk about risk policies or dealing with risk through policies. But before we can talk about those things, we do have to talk about planning and governance. Planning and governance has to happen before we start implementing and designing security policies. So, a quick introduction. The information security program begins with policy, standards, and practices. This is an important concept. Before we can implement IT security, we have to have a policy, we have to have a plan in place, and then a policy. We're going to talk about this later on, but if you don't have a policy in place, then you really don't know what you're doing with your IT security program. So, policies and procedures and all those sorts of things are certainly very important, and that's what we're going to talk about in this unit. Coordinated planning is required to create and maintain all of these different elements across the organization, and strategic planning for the management of allocation of resources. Strategic planning in business is anytime we're planning, we're not just flying by the seat of our pants, we're making sure that what we're doing fits in with the overall strategic plan of the organization. So, we're going to talk a little bit about the strategic planning concept. And contingency planning is the preparation for uncertain business environment to make sure that we can mitigate and deal with those risks through our policies. So, as far as governance and planning goes, so planning helps us translate an organization's strategic plans into tactical objectives. Uh, One important note here is one of the important roles of a CISO or a Chief Information Security Officer is to work within the C suite to make sure that the information security program is aligning with the strategic objectives and goals of the overall organization and to make sure that they're supporting and in line with those goals. So that's an important role for the CISO. We're going to talk here about governance. So, governance is the set of responsibilities and practices exercised by executive management. And the goal is to provide strategic direction, establish objectives, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of this stuff is from your textbook. But the important thing about governance is there are several goals with governance. But before I talk about these, I could kind of distill governance for you in this way: that governance is sort of the is determined by executive management. It's saying this is what we want out of our IT security program, or this is what we need out of our IT security program. So, for example, risk management or risk assessment might be a part of that IT security program. A security policy framework, having compliance with regulations and so forth, which we'll talk about, and information assurance. All of those things would make up IS governance. So, the goals or the outcomes of governance are strategic alignment with the organization's overall goals, risk management, resource management, make sure we have the right people, make sure we have enough resources to implement all of this stuff, performance measures to make sure that we're meeting our goals or exceeding our goals, and value delivery or making sure that we're bringing value to the organization. In the next slide, in the next deck, we're going to talk about specifically how we create IT security policies.